Hello everyone, we're continuing our series, Spiritual States. With us is Dr. Michael Laitman. Hello. Hello. Today I'd like to talk on this show about the age of judges. That was sometime that takes up about 300 years from our history. It started about 1,300 years ago. 3,300 years ago. And let's start a bit with history. The age of judges, about 1,200 till 890 BC, something like that. It lasted for about 300 years. It was a special spiritual level because it symbolized a period where practically there was no army, kings, and so this is how it worked back then. Was this a special degree, a spiritual degree that the nation was on? Of course, everything that happens in our world happens as a result of man's inner states, the inner states of society, and you can't detach one from the other. Therefore, the spiritual state of each and every one and all together, and all the more coming out of the Egyptian exile, where they felt that they're under the rule of Pharaoh, under the rule of their ego, that reigned in them, and by no way could they get out of it, release themselves from it. Then being free already, meaning crossing the barrier from themselves, their Pharaoh, their ego that governed them into freedom, then they felt themselves in a completely different world, meaning no longer that they need to abide by some inner habits of their own inclinations, but they could be free of their own nature. And what began was the age of judges, meaning what? Where they can already judge themselves, where they can rise above themselves and feel the states that they need to be in. So let's put it this way. Judges were those who were able to separate themselves from the ego and judge themselves and others correctly. Well, practically this is how every person was. So it wasn't that there was like this one judge. No, practically every person. That's how people were. But also there were judges who manifested the measure of responsibility, understanding as to what they're in. So they had this moral level that actually allowed them to rule the nation without even... They had a power of their own. They were under the power of their own forces, decisions. They were judges for themselves. That's why it was the period of judges. What's the main function of a judge back then? The main function of a judge is to judge his own qualities and understand when are they good, when are they bad, how exactly, and this way to advance, correct themselves, ask, beg, turn to the Creator for Him to give the quality of bestowal and love to elevate a person above his egoistic nature. What is the ideal shape, form of a judge? The form of an ideal judge is that quality in a person where he can be absolutely detached from his ego, and he can reign over himself, well, to a certain measure, of course, and to govern himself and to turn himself toward a greater quality of bestowal, love, toward the corrected quality. That's the work of a judge, meaning to first and foremost determine what is good and what is bad, and then to rise above what's bad to the level of what's good. And it's possible to develop that in a person, or how does it work? Well, it's something that you can develop in a person. We even see that back then even women were judges. Doesn't matter, men, women, doesn't matter. So it was very strange back then. Right. The history of Israel, if you take that into consideration without the correct Kabbalistic commentary, if you read about it, it's very weird, twisted kind of, entangled. It says in the Torah, do not blaspheme your judges or curse the ruler of your people. A person needs to understand that a judge is above everyone, meaning not even to blaspheme or blemish, or where could that come from? Because an ordinary person, he can't know what degree a judge saw on, and to what measure did he reject his ego. He's supposed to believe in it, or what? The thing is that a judge, it's not a person, it's a quality in a person. Such a quality in which a person himself can judge himself. So if I have such a quality, then I can discover in that judge the same quality, and then judge him, tell about him. Well, this is too twisted, but yeah, you can say that too. We're not talking about people, we're talking about qualities. And every person, there's the quality of a judge, and every person needs to develop it inside of him. And without developing this quality, there's no point in even thinking of rising to a spiritual degree. Well, okay, so let's put this story aside for a moment. You're saying that judges are our inner qualities. It says that put judges and officers at all your gates, etc., etc. What does it mean that I have to make certain limitations? It means that if I want to come out of my own Egypt, of being stuck in my ego, it means that I have to come out of it, crossing through the Red Sea, the end sea, literally meaning that separates the egoistic from altruistic desires, and to start developing in me altruistic desires. And in order to develop in me altruistic desires, I need, in accordance with those qualities that I find in myself, that I can coincide with my egoistic qualities. I need to rise above my ego, and this way I constantly judge. What way should I further rise and ascend and more? And all of these states that I go through, these are the times of judges. What are these gates that I have to put guards and officers at? That you can enter the quality of love and bestowal only if you go through these conditions where You possess the forces of love and bestow. Not that the forces of the ego govern you, but that you possess the forces of love and bestow that you have received from your corrected egoistic qualities, and then you come to a state where before you a completely different world is revealed. You build it, you make it. In your blog, you write that it's necessary to create an analytical controlling system in your desires that will lead you to implementing system. Well, that's how we always work. That first we feel some kind of aspiration in our heart, some thoughts correspondingly in our mind, and then we come to the realization, to the implementation of our thoughts and emotions. So, when certain desires appear in a person, first of all, he has to analyze them. Then to judge, meaning to examine his intention, and only then to fulfill these desires, meaning to examine his intention. So a person needs constantly, to develop such forces inside himself in order to be able to examine what is he performing a certain action for the sake of whom? Right. What's controlling him, governing him? And these are judges inside a person. Right. So we can say that we are all the time judging ourselves and each other and the Creator. Right. And the main thing is to judge ourselves. It's even said that each appreciates himself to the measure of his own corruption, to the measure of his ego. Meaning that I always appreciate someone else compared to myself. And only. So what does it mean to evaluate something according to your qualities? Good, bad. You can even justify someone else. But mainly, of course, you shall not appreciate that person because the ego is controlling a person. And how do we judge the Creator? We judge the Creator, we judge our own life, ourselves, everything that He has created. We have no one else to judge. Actually, we're always judging the Creator. His attitude toward me, toward others, what He did with us and the way He governs us, it's something that we constantly judge. What's the right way to judge the Creator? First of all, you need to come out to the level of independence. How to objectively do it. For this, you need to rise above your own nature, to be independent of yourself and the Creator. So before a person releases himself from his egoistic intentions, he can't objectively judge the qualities of the Creator in relation to himself and others. Of course. Obviously. And it's said that there's some higher court, hell, heaven, that after a person dies, he appears before this higher court. What is it? These are terrible states. When a person reveals his attitude toward the world, the way he lived, existed, how bad he felt, etc. And he gravely regrets it. He understands where did it all come from, but still, this isn't justifying. In short, everything that a person starts understanding about himself, this is called hell. So obviously that it's all an allegory, but that a person appears before some kind of higher court where he's judged for some actions of his in this world. Is there something about it? Some kind of truth or? No. There's nothing similar to it, no point in even talking about it. It's so unlike what we can depict and what we can depict in our egoistic thoughts and everything. No, it's no. But it's well invented, because were a person not to imagine something like that, he'd be doing who knows what in this world. I don't think that it prevents people from doing anything, and nowadays, who knows, and what governs all of these. Yeah, we see that people aren't really afraid of anything. Yeah, in the past they were more primitive, and it's very possible that restrained them, but actually, nothing restrains a person. The ego, one way or another, prevails over everything, and if a person does not aspire for its realistic correction, building something else out of himself, building something above the egoistic, nothing will help him then. What does happen after death? Is there some kind of court? Because it's written so. What is that about? It's a court that judges the ego, meaning that a person judges himself. It's not judging the corporeal animate body. Nothing happens as a result of our animal body dying. It is a court in which a person starts feeling that all the past in him needs to die in order for him to change, to be reborn. This is how he feels himself passing through hell, where he evaluates himself. It says so in the book of Zohar. That he goes through such states. So what follows is that heaven and hell, a person determines what that is in his lifetime. Of course. This is how he feels, his actions, his qualities, as heaven and hell. So unless a person abstained, rejected his ego, then for him there is no hell. He has nothing to care. He can't compare nothing with nothing. He's just an animal. And if he does, then he sees his previous egoistic states as hell, and heaven is like the future altruistic connection with the Creator. No. There's also a concept called the Day of Atonement, of Judgment, Yom Kippur in Hebrew. What does a person judge there? Heaven and hell, or are there other kinds of judgments? No, it's an allegory. That's how it's expressed, as an allegory. It's described as the Day of Judgment, when a person looks at his own deeds and judges himself, where he can really see his actions as sins. It's given only to unique individuals and also not in every generation. And everything else, these are just theatrical staging from generation to generation that appears the way it does among believing Jews. Rabash, your teacher, says that Laitman, in translation, to pray, literally means to judge yourself. So a prayer, from Kabbalah's point of view, is judging yourself, right? When a person judges himself and sees that his deeds, to some extent, were completely incorrect, but this is to the measure to which he receives a certain portion of the upper light, and according with this light, with his qualities, can he measure himself. Well, we have a few minutes left. I'd like to touch on one more topic, Judges of the Future. Bala Sulam and the Writings of the Last Generation. These are kinds of articles where he wrote toward the end of his life, where he touched on judges, the topic of future judges, even though that he didn't publicize it anywhere. But it's interesting, first of all, to find out, will there be judges in the future? In the future, a person will judge himself. Others will see and know. How does each judge himself? Everything will be open. Everything will exist only in name of, only for the sake of the benefit of the collective, of everyone. And of course, there will be very interesting courts that will help each of us to rise above himself and connect between us and with the Creator. He says that the main function of courts will be educational, that people who will serve society will be rewarded for it, and this is what courts will be engaged in. Well, I don't know about rewards, what they mean exactly by it in translation, but courts will be such that they will allow every person to see the level on which he is, what does he need to still correct in his relations with others, and how to bring himself to correction. Well, it says that there's going to be like a Supreme Court that will decide whether a person can dedicate his life to spiritual development. Well, we don't exactly understand what do they mean, but even such, suppose. Okay, last question. If a person's motivation in the last generation is to feel closeness with the quality of bestowal or to achieve equivalence of form with the Creator, could it be that the respect that he gets from society will serve as fuel for him and not the connection with the Creator itself? Well, it's actually one and the same. It's actually one and the same. What's the difference? Well, I work in order to receive respect from society. Well, that's completely egoistic reward. No. Here, it's not about that. I work to the benefit of society, willing to do everything for society, to the point where, but in order for my ego to be able to work, it's necessary for me to get fuel from that society. And therefore, I come to society, I even ask them, I do everything that I can in order to receive from them a reward. The reward is in that I will have the energy, that I will be able, above my own ego, to give everything to society. So actually, what follows is that courts aren't supposed to judge, but are supposed to be engaged in education. Of course, meaning spiritual advancement, adhesion with the Creator, right, in creating the proper intention in a person. And you think that this will happen in the future? Even today? Why not? Let's hope. Okay, thank you very much. This was our show, Spiritual States. We talked about courts, judges, and especially the judges inside of us. Till next time, all the best.